Guys, I'm glad to see you came back for part 2 of Ezekiel Proctor's life. So here we have Ezekiel Proctor, a man who, at the very least, was rowdy, was notorious for starting saloon brawls. At this point, I think had already been tied to the killings of 2 brothers from the Jaybird family. Just was a rowdy guy. And then you got old Jim Kesterson, who left Ezekiel's sister to go be with Polly Beck, who Ezekiel possibly had a crush on and did not approve of Cherokee women being with white men, and Jim Kesterson was white. And then you have the Beck family, who were Confederates, and you got Ezekiel, who was a Union soldier, and then you mix all that in, and he could have possibly been some sort of law officer at the time, and maybe Polly Beck's cattle were getting out. I don't know. It was a whole thing. It was a mess. So Ezekiel rides over to give Jim Kesterson and Polly Beck a visit. Those are all the reasons possibly why. Actually, Wikipedia, it's fairly reliable, says the 3 things, I'm going to read this because I wrote them down. The 3 things that we know as pretty much fact are that Zeke was known to object to Cherokee women with white men. Jim Kesterson, who was white, had once been married to Proctor's sister and was now married to Polly Beck, and that Proctor had a romantic interest in Polly. So, Wikipedia, that's from Wikipedia, 3 facts there. So, old Polly Beck had a mill, and it was a nice mill over at Flint, which is in West Siloam Springs. Her first husband that died, from the sources I can find, he died in the Civil War. His name was Stephen. He had built the mill, and it was a fancy, fancy operation for its time. The millstone itself had been imported from France. I mean, it was quite an ordeal. So she had this mill. It was called the Hildebrand Beck Mill, and I think to this day it's still called the Hildebrand Beck Mill. Several of her family and his family lived all right there. I think it even has its own cemetery out there. When I was a teenager, my dad took me through there and kind of pointed out the area, and he told me the story of Zeke Proctor, because my dad really liked history and he could make it sound like a whole story. So he did. He drove me out there and we sat there and he told me this story that I'm telling you guys. So maybe someday you'll tell someone. So anyway, Zeke shows up. I don't know what happened. Nobody knows. But at some point, Zeke and Jim got mad enough that they drew weapons and started firing at each other. Everything I've been able to find says that Polly Beck jumped between the 2. I guess thinking she was going to stop them or that Zeke wouldn't shoot him. I don't know. I don't know what she was thinking. But she jumped between them and took a bullet. From what I've read, she took it to the chest and died pretty much instantly. So, at some point, I don't know if Zeke kept firing after that or if he had already hit Jim, but Jim got hit in the head with a rifle that Zeke had. And I do not know what happened. It's all fuzzy. I don't know if Zeke thought he had killed Jim and Polly both and he left, or if Jim was able to get away. I don't know. But long story short, it did not kill Jim. He was just wounded. And if I were going to guess, it kind of bounced off his skull, because sometimes if you're hit just right, it won't go in. It just kind of bounces off. And it probably wasn't pleasant, but, it didn't kill him. But it did kill Polly. So, let me read the name here. I'm going to get this wrong. So, Polly had, this was the bad part, Polly had a brother and 2 first cousins, the Beck boys, who worked with the U.S. Deputy Marshal in Fort Smith. So she kind of had some relatives with a little bit of pull. So that's bad. And all of this is fixing to lead to the Goingsnake massacre. So that's important to remember. That Polly, who Zeke killed unintentionally, he did not mean to kill Polly at all. It was a total accident. Polly jumped between them. That was not what he planned. But Polly had family that were working with the U.S. Deputy Marshals. So, from what I've been able to read, Proctor surrendered himself after he killed Polly to the sheriff of Goingsnake. And Cherokee Judge Blackhawk's 6th killer was appointed to the case. And rumor had it that Black Hawk 6 killer and about 11 other Cherokee men were going to work to get Zeke off. They were going to acquit him. He wasn't going to be tried for this accident, Well, Jim Kesterson believed that Zeke Proctor was not going to be convicted in a Cherokee court. He thought that he would get off scot-free for killing Polly and trying to kill Jim. So he appealed to the regional federal court, asking for an arrest warrant from the United States government for Proctor to be tried in a non-Cherokee court in Fort Smith. Okay, I'm going to pump my brakes here with that information and tell you guys kind of a whole nother little backstory. So remember when the United States government made a treaty with the Cherokee, they told the Cherokees that they were their own nation. If they moved and they left Georgia, the government said, hey, we're going to leave you alone. We're going to let you do your own thing. We're going to let you take care of your own people. We're going to stay out of it. It's going to be your deal. All right? So the federal government should have had no business telling the Cherokee Nation what to do with Zeke. But Jim Kesterson, being a white man, went and appealed and said, hey, listen, this dude killed my wife, and now he's about to get tried by Cherokee Nation, and I don't think anything's going to happen to him, and he tried to kill me. So why don't you guys go out and get him? If he doesn't get in trouble for this, I think that the white man's court, the federal government, should punish him. Well, apparently the feds agreed because they issued a warrant for his arrest if he were not convicted for killing Polly Beck. So this made, as you can imagine, the Cherokees really mad because that was breaking the treaty with them. The treaty said that, hey, Zeke Proctor is Cherokee. He's a Cherokee citizen. He killed another Cherokee citizen. So it's up to us to figure out what to do with him, United States government. It's not up to you. You said you were going to butt out and let us take care of our business. Well, they didn't let the Cherokee Nation take care of their business. They had to get involved because Jim Kesterson, being white, got them involved. So it was a whole big mess. And all of this is leading up to Goingsnake Massacre. So if you will tune in tomorrow for part 3, you'll find out what happened at Whitmire Schoolhouse, and it was a bloodbath. So check in for part 3 tomorrow and you'll find out what happened.